applause, introducing and welcoming Dr. Raphael and Sanjeev to the stage.
All right. Well, thank you. Thank you, Raphael, for being here.
It's a pleasure to be here. I'm looking forward to the conversation.
Me as well. And thank you, everyone, for joining us this afternoon. You know, we're at a Fintech conference, and one of the questions that is often asked about like Fintech founders is like, you know, what is the fire in the belly that like got you to want to, you know, do what you do? What's a bit of the personal story that fed into what you're doing in the professional realm? So even though you're not a Fintech founder, I think I'm going to ask him that question if you're okay with that.
Yeah, I was going to say I'm not a founder like that, so you all have more fire in the belly than I do. First of all, thank you for having me here. Thanks for being here. I'm really looking forward to this, and I think the stuff that you do is really on the cutting edge in a way that can really help in so many ways. So I'm excited to be here and be a part of this. In terms of, I guess, how I've gotten to where I've gotten, I think it's a couple things. So one, I've really tried to live in my passion spaces. So I love economics. I love trying to help economies work better and see people thrive in many different ways. A second thing is, you know, I reflect on my childhood. And my mother and father and my aunts and uncles, they always said, whatever you do, make sure you do it to the best you can. You need to be 200% better and push, never just settle for getting something done. And those two things, I think, have been important. And then the third thing for me is I try to be nice with people, always be like a real team member. And what I've learned and experienced from that is that people then ask me to join them on things, and opportunities have emerged in ways that I really wouldn't have imagined if I didn't have sort of a decent reputation out there. So I think that combination has allowed me to go through things and have opportunities presented to me that really weren't on my list, 12 months earlier, 6 months earlier, but have them be very exciting.
That's amazing. I love that. And all of that has come together, and you've been leading the Fed for many years now, the Federal Reserve Bank of Atlanta. You know, to sort of set the stage, actually, how many of you in the audience are in payments? How many of you are fintechs? So for the folks that raise their hands, you know, in payments and fintech, what is the role of the Federal Reserve Bank of Atlanta?
So, you know, it's interesting. When most people think of the Fed, they think of monetary policy and interest rates. Some of them also think about bank regulation. I don't think people really realize how involved the Federal Reserve and our bank for many years have been in payments. So, you know, we have FedNow, which is the instant payments vehicle or rail. We do ACH, so the clearinghouse stuff. We do check processing. I'm guessing, looking out here, not many of you write checks anymore, but if you write a check, it's likely to be processed in our building down the street from here. And then, of course, there's cash as well. So we are very present in all aspects of the payment system and really have an interest in making sure that the payment system works well, because payments is how people engage in the economy, but it's also how people thrive in the economy. So businesses, households, public sector agencies, they all need the payment system to flow so that people have the resources that they need in important ways. So historically, our system, the Fed system in our bank, has really tried, in addition to just being an operator, trying to drive innovation in the marketplace. And so we try to have a safer payment system, a faster payment system, a more ubiquitous payment system, and a lot of the innovations that we've done have accomplished that. So back to checks, for example. So it used to be when you had a check, you had to deposit it at a branch. Today, you can just take a picture of it, and that counts as a deposit. That was a Federal Reserve innovation. And we really encourage the industry to get involved and embrace those sorts of things. And to me, that's really a great example of the way that we're trying to be part of the payment ecosystem in a way that helps it get better and helps it work better for people.
And how about for fintechs? Obviously, that's a newer term.
Oh, so fintechs, yeah. So it's interesting. Atlanta, when I got here, everyone told me this is Fintech Alley. This is Payments Alley. There are a bunch of fintechs that are doing things, and so for me, I think the fintech space is one where we need to really have a partnership with fintechs so that they understand the services that we can provide, and we can understand the way that fintechs are trying to make a difference. Because with that understanding, we can help ensure that every founder of a fintech firm knows sort of the full range of things that they need to have if they're going to be effective in plugging into the payment system and serving customers. So I love talking to them. I learn a lot about their innovations, their ideas about how they can make a difference. But I also try to share, my job. Well, I tell my staff all the time, one thing I don't ever want to do is get called to testify, right? And so if something were to happen and it took down the payment system, at the time we were running retail payments, I would probably get a call to fly up to Washington and explain it.
Yes.
So what I want to make sure is that every fintech, as they think about their role, is aware of all the risks that we're seeing about how the payment system can be threatened, how consumers can get into trouble, and have contingencies or plans to mitigate those. So it is sort of a back and forth conversation to really try to make sure that we have a safe, sound, efficient, and effective payment system that is robust to a wide range of things.
And to broaden it out even further, one of the core strategies of your institution is to help support an economy that works for everyone. Can you talk a little bit about what that means in both, I guess, at a strategic level, but also at a practical level?
Yeah. So at a very high level, the Fed, the Congress has given the Federal Reserve two mandates. One is maximum employment, and one is stable prices. And when I think about maximum employment, it really is trying to get every person in a job that allows them to realize as close to their full potential as possible. That's an economy that's evidence of an economy that works for everyone. What I've seen in my career as a research economist is oftentimes the payment system can be a barrier that prevents people from being able to do that, either because they don't have access to the right tools or because the types of things they want to do, there aren't ready-made vehicles to accomplish those things. And that's where innovation really comes in and can make a difference. So as I think about fintechs, as I think about the payment system and its evolution, I'm often thinking about how those things can actually broaden access, create more inclusion, and really allow anybody who has a good idea to really test that out and try it. And to the extent that we get there, I think we wind up seeing the most type of innovations, the largest type of innovations, or the broadest type of innovations that can really touch every American.
And so how about in terms of payments? So just a bit of background. I'm married to a PhD in economics as well too. So my wife always she's always like, give me some examples. She's very so. For example, in payments, how can you talk about maybe some of the things that have happened or are happening in payments that?
Well, I think a lot about how people are able to access their money.
Yeah.
And this has been something that has been a challenge for many people.
Yeah.
You think about payday lending, or the requirement that a worker wait a week or 2 weeks before they can get paid for the work that they've done. And what I've started to see as me and my team go around are innovations to do this. So a lot of companies now have tools and vehicles for same-day payment. All right, so you can get your money faster and better. I think our FedNow innovation, which is real-time payments, has the potential to basically significantly reduce or even eliminate overdraft fees, because people will not really be positioned or have an opportunity to draw money that they wouldn't have otherwise and then pay the penalty on that. So it can lead to a more efficient system, and it can also lead to a system that has people have more of their money so that they can do more with what they've earned, and that's really important. And, I also think about a lot of small businesses, particularly, one person, two person, three person. Many times they pay the company that they've provide the services for, and they may have to wait, weeks or a couple of months. And for those type of companies, cash flow is king. They need to make sure that they're getting their cash as fast as possible. So all of these sort of innovations can do that as well.
And I think we probably had about 40% of the audience raise their hand when I asked how many were in fintech. It was, what can fintech leaders do in terms of being able to support an economy that works for maximal number?
Yeah, so I think about this a couple of ways. So one, so I don't know you all personally, so I'm just going to say this, but I will say each of you who is pursuing with a new product or a new company has an idea about a hole that's in the marketplace that needs to be filled. Sometimes that hole involves people who have not historically had access. Other times it doesn't. And I encourage founders to think broadly about the types of constituents they can serve, to maybe try to explore the circumstances of folks they may not be as familiar with, so that they might find that there are ready-made constituencies, ready-made customers out there that with small changes or different kinds of articulation of the business case could be important partners for them. And because I do think, as I go around, so the Atlanta Fed has, we have a large district. So we have Florida all the way to New Orleans. We have Nashville to the Appalachians and everything in between. It's a lot of different circumstances, but there are some basic commonalities that just about every family has, that every basic needs that every business has. And so thinking about how to make those things as available as possible is really something that can be quite valuable.
And when we were backstage, you were talking about the different offices that you have, and I was quite astounded at the diversity of the types of economies that you cover. How much difference is there in terms of what types of innovations might work in different locations?
Yeah, so just for everyone, we have, in addition to Atlanta, offices in Miami, Jacksonville, Birmingham, New Orleans, and Nashville. And if you've been to these places, they are not the same. And how business gets done, how information gets shared, how partnerships are created, they're all quite different. And those are just our basic things. So last week I was in a rural town in Alabama. The town population was 3,000. And so that's a whole nother circumstance for how things are going to play out, the importance of word of mouth, those sorts of things. So for me, I think the diversity is a challenge, but it's also a real opportunity because it means that there's always some new angle that can be pursued. There's always some new set of relationships that one could try to incorporate into how they think about their business, and it can be quite interesting. The world is very interesting and it's very complex, but I also think there are, as I was saying before, these commonalities. Every business person I have has ambition. They want to make a difference and an impact. Every family has some basic things. They want their children to be more secure and be able to have better lives than they do. And so those common themes, I think, really do mean that there's a way to engage with people, regardless of where they're from, in ways that can create real connections.
And so to change the topic a little bit, there's obviously been a change in regulatory climate, and regardless of where you sit in the financial services space, we need to be very mindful of the regulatory climate. What are your thoughts as far as the new, or where things are going from a regulatory perspective, and how might bank leaders, fintech leaders, adjust to that?
Yeah, so I guess when I think about the regulatory environment, there's a basic reality that that guides me, which is we want every financial institution that's alive today to be alive tomorrow. So we have to be thinking about safety and soundness, and that's important. And then we also want the economy to provide the full range of services that are required in the marketplace, and find the most effective and most innovative and interesting ways to do that. So we always have to be, and it's a balancing act, right? Because the new thing can be great, but the new thing might introduce experiences that no one has thought of before. And so we have to be ready in all those cases. I think in today's dynamic environment, and I tell our folks at our bank as well, we have to always be ready to adapt. We have to be always ready to embrace and engage with those who come up with new ideas, because it's that learning that allows us to make sure that our financial system is always at the cutting edge, always providing as much as possible for businesses, for families, and for anyone who's trying to really do things in America. So I do think things change, policies change, but the bedrock goals and objectives don't. And I think that's the important thing to keep in mind.
So you mentioned safety and soundness as well as innovation, balancing that with innovation. One of the hot topics in the fintech space has been cryptocurrency, and it's been, I've heard the term thrown around this year that we're in stablecoin summer. And what are your thoughts about new products or services like that in the context of your role at the Federal Reserve Bank, but also in the context of monetary policy?
Sure, so this is, as you might imagine, a question I get fairly often. Because there has been a lot of energy in this. So the crypto space and things that have blockchain as this foundation are evolving very rapidly. There's a lot of interest in it. As a fraction of the entire US financial system, it's still relatively small. And so for us as the Federal Reserve, we think about risk for sure, but financial stability is something that is actually even a greater consideration for us. And the crypto market today is sufficiently small, I think, that financial stability is not really in play. That said, it is growing fast. And it's important for us to have a view on all the developments that occur in that space, so that if and when it gets to a sufficient scale, we understand it enough to be able to really know how we need to position ourselves. Now, you also mentioned stablecoin, which is, it's interesting. More and more I hear people talk about stablecoin as distinct from crypto. I think they both have sort of a blockchain foundation underneath it, but stablecoin's foundations are quite different in the sense that there's a requirement that folks have assets to match the amount that they're issuing, which in principle makes them more stable, right? And so that is interesting. The Genius Act just passed. It requires, or it asks the regulators to come up with a regulatory structure in which stablecoin can function. And that's a process that's going on now, and I imagine there'll be lots of discussion about this moving forward to figure out how this plays out. But it is something that we definitely, as I say, I get questions on this all the time, so I need to make sure that I'm on top of it and know all the different perspectives that there are on the tool.
And maybe jumping back to the, one of the prior themes is having an economy that works for everyone. I've been in rooms years ago where, like, we were talking about cryptocurrencies, and it felt, I hate saying it, but it felt a bit elitist, to be honest. But now, like, do you think that these instruments have the opportunity to go beyond and to maybe even empower broader segments of the population?
Well, they could. I think, depending on whether you're talking stablecoins, crypto, how they get deployed and the use cases for them are still in flux, right? Particularly on the crypto side, there's a lot of discussion that I've heard for years and years about all the different ways that it might be present and change how payments play out. And some of those use cases have not actually borne fruit to this point. We'll have to see if that evolves. And if it happens, then there is the possibility for that transformation.
Yeah.
You know, the stablecoin, I've heard a lot of folks talk about stablecoin as a potentially really important vehicle for cross-border payments. Cross-border payments have been a pain point for people and for the payments infrastructure for quite some time. And so I think we're going to have to see the varying use cases. I've also heard people talk about the stablecoin marketplace as a way to transform like treasury markets and add liquidity into that space as well. And I think it'll be interesting to see where all this goes.
Yeah.
So in this space, in terms of these financial asset tools or vehicles, we're in the very early days of an experience that I think is going to last and evolve for quite some time.
I definitely agree, and I often I go back to thinking about the transistor. So when the transistor was invented, does anyone know what the first use case for the transistor was? It was hearing aids, and because it was a small amplifier that could fit in the ear. But now the transistor is used in logic and all these kinds of things. So I completely agree that we don't know where we're going to go.
Well, I didn't know that about the hearing aid, so I'm like generation 7.0 on that. So that's very good. That's like very interesting. You know, but it is so many technologies that are now general purpose technology. You think about the microwave and all these things. Yeah. They were not created for the uses that are most popular with them today.
Yeah.
And so, you know, as innovation happens, that's why this quest for use cases and this continuing journey to try to find ways to deploy things in new ways to get new understandings about how things can happen is actually quite interesting.
No, that's great. And I know we've got about a few minutes left. So if I can ask to put the slide up on how to interact with the Fed, if we can get that up on the screen. Yeah. So obviously there's a very accomplished and very our crowd is filled with like some really amazing folks here. So like, how can they interact with the Fed, and like and any advice that you would also in terms of how they might want to interact with the Fed?
Yeah. So first of all, everyone should subscribe. So how many people were subscribers to the Atlanta Fed before this session? Okay, that's a small number. So hopefully we will get to a larger number before the end of this conference. So one of the things that we've really tried to do at the bank is be transparent about what we know and how we think about how the economy is functioning. So we have a lot of tools that really try to give ideas about how wages are evolving, or how employment is evolving, or how GDP is evolving, or how inflation is evolving and prices. And we make all those things available. Actually, we have tools that talk about housing affordability and the home ownership and the rental side. And these tools are really at a national level. I got a bunch of economists that do reports, and they will put those up. You don't have to read the PhD version. We actually do something we call a policy hub, which translates it into regular people language. We have a survey center that is producing surveys of CFOs and other businesses to try to give a sense of where the business community is seeing the economy evolve and where there are risks and opportunities. And then I give speeches, I do things like this. I have a quarterly president's message where I describe how I'm thinking about our policy and where it can move forward. All of this is free. It is all available. You don't have to do anything except just read the email, because one thing that we really believe is that the country is better off, the business sector is better off, and families are better off if they actually have all the information that they might want to have in sort of as transparent and clear a way as possible. I remind people, like, I don't get paid extra if businesses do better or worse, right? So I'm going to tell you the information that I think is important and real, and I really hope that people take it up and make the most of it.
That's wonderful. And any final parting words that you'd like to leave with the audience?
So a couple things, yeah. So one, keep doing what you're doing. Push hard, be ambitious. Change can help this be much more closely an economy that works for everyone. And keep that phrase in your mind that the folks that you want to engage with may just be the tip of the iceberg of the folks that you can really impact and make a difference on, and strive to do that every day.
That's a wonderful way to end. Thank you very much, Raphael. We really enjoyed it.
It's been a pleasure to be here. Thank you.
Thank you.